What's up everyone, welcome back to Rosie TV, and today we have another predictions video, but this time we're going to predict the top 4 for the Bundesliga, the Serie A, and La Liga, 3 of my favorite leagues in the world. As you all know, the top 4 from these leagues get a spot into the Champions League the following campaign. Serie A last season, they had 3 Champions League spots, and the past few years they've had 3 Champions League spots, but UEFA has granted them another Champions League spot, so now the 4th place team will get to have Champions League football. So let's quickly dive in to the Bundesliga first, and we're going to start off with their 4th place team, and I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be the same 4th place team as last year, Hoffenheim. Now, while Hoffenheim have lost 2 key players in Niklas Süle and Sebastian Rudy, both of them going to Bayern Munich, so they're strengthening a rival as well. But let's face it, Hoffenheim were never really going to challenge for the Bundesliga, and at the same time, many other Bundesliga teams have been weakened as well. Teams like Leverkusen, teams like Schalke, teams like Wolfsburg, who struggled last season in the league. Wolfsburg almost got relegated. These teams have got even weaker, losing a lot of key players. Leverkusen losing Javier Hernandez, Schalke lost Sead Kolasinac, Wolfsburg lost Ricardo Rodriguez, and many others. I don't see much competition for that 4th place, so I'm going to stick with Hoffenheim. I think Julian Nagelsmann is a fantastic young coach. Moving on to 3rd place, I'm going to go with RB Leipzig, the team that got 2nd place last season in their first year in the Bundesliga. This year, I think they're going to struggle a little bit more just because they're going to have Champions League football, so it won't be as easy as it was last year, but I still think they'll do well. They've kept Naby Keita, they've kept Emil Forsberg, they still have Timo Werner. Those were their 3 key players last year, and they've kept hold of all of them. Naby Keita still has some links to Liverpool, but it looks like it's not going to happen. I think Leipzig will get 3rd place. Moving on to 2nd place, I'm going to go with Borussia Dortmund. They haven't lost any big players, but they could very well lose Ousmane Dembele to Barcelona, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to Milan, and they haven't really strengthened that much. They've brought in Mahmoud Dawood, who could be a very good signing in midfield. But the reason I think they'll do better than last year is because I think Peter Bosz is going to bring a more direct style than Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel, for me, one big criticism I had was he tinkered a lot with the team, didn't really have a set formation, a set group of 11 guys, and that's great for giving the young people a chance, the young players, such as Christian Pulisic and so on. But I think Peter Bosz is going to give stability to Dortmund, and I think they could get 2nd place, which brings me to my number 1 team, Bayern Munich. There's no team in the Bundesliga that could touch them, and I think they're going to challenge for the Champions League as well. They've brought in some fantastic midfielders, such as James Rodriguez from a Champions League rival in Real Madrid. They brought in Florentin Tolisso, who is a fantastic player in the center of the park. I think their main objective is definitely the Champions League, but I still think they're going to win the Bundesliga very easily. All right, now we're going to move on to the Serie A, and we're going to start off with 4th place. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be Roma. I think they're going to drop from 2nd to 4th. They've lost some key players in their starting lineup, such as Rudiger and Mohamed Salah. They've also lost Luciano Spalletti as a manager. He's went to Inter. They did get Eusebio Di Francesco from Sassuolo, who's been very good for them for the past few years, but now he has to adjust to a bigger club, which some of the smaller managers kind of struggle to do, but I think he'll do just fine, get that 4th place, and if Edin Dzeko has a similar season to last year, I think they could even do better than 4th place. But now I'm going to move on to 3rd place. I'm going to go with my favorite team, AC Milan. A lot of people are tipping us to get 2nd, maybe even challenge for the title, but with a lot of signings comes a lot of time to adjust. Not all these players are Serie A proven, and plus our whole starting lineup has been flipped on its head, and Vincenzo Montella is going to have a lot more pressure on him to secure Champions League football. If he doesn't secure Champions League football, you know he's going to get the sack. But I think we're going to get 3rd pretty comfortably. We could possibly even get 2nd, but just because of the fact we've gotten so many players, and it's going to take a pretty good amount of time to adjust to the league. But I think we've brought in some fantastic signings, some signings like Leonardo Bonucci, which is, for me, one of the best signings this transfer window. Definitely our best signing, weakening Juventus and giving us one of the best defenders in the world. We also brought in some great fullbacks like Ricardo Rodriguez, Andrea Conti. We brought in Frank Kessie, Lucas Biglia, Hakan Çalhanoğlu. We brought in Andre Silva. We're still linked with players like Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So it's been a fantastic transfer window, but now we have to take all of that hype and put it onto the pitch. I think we'll get third. Moving on to second place, I'm going to go with Napoli. Now, Napoli haven't brought in any big signings or anything like that, but the fact that they've kept their core, Maurizio Sarri for me is one of the best managers in the world, and for me, the best manager in Serie A. They're known for their midfield, and they've kept all of their midfielders, and in my opinion, Hamšík is the best midfielder in the Serie A, and is one of the most underrated players in the world. They've kept Koulibaly, they've kept Dries Mertens. I think Napoli could do a better job of challenging for the title if they had a better goalkeeper. I think Pepe Reina is way past his prime, but nonetheless, I still think they're going to finish second. They could drop to third or fourth. I think it's going to be a really exciting battle for top 4 in Serie A this season. But what I don't think is going to be competitive is going to be the championship itself. I think Juventus will win the title. They might not do as well as past years. They did lose Leonardo Bonucci. They did lose Dani Alves, 2 of the best players in their position in the world. But I think they're going to be a much more attacking team, bringing in the likes of Douglas Costa, Federico Bernardeschi. But this could very well be the season where Juventus's dominance finally ends. They win the Serie A title, but they could go in the decline after that. Now I'm going to go to La Liga and start with the 4th place team. This is a very tough one. I'm going to go ahead and say it's going to be Sevilla. It could very well be Villarreal, but I'm going to stick with Sevilla here. I think it's going to be a big hit for them losing Jorge Sampaoli. He's went to the Argentina job, but at the same time, they've kept their key pieces from last year. They have a very strong squad, but they've also brought in the likes of Nolito, who is La Liga proven. He was fantastic with Celta Vigo. I think they'll comfortably get top 4, but they could get 5th, and Villarreal could take that 4th spot. But I'm going to stick with them. I think they still have some fantastic players. 3rd place, I'm going to go with Atletico Madrid. I think Atletico Madrid could have gotten 2nd if they didn't have this transfer ban, which is going to hamper them from making any signings. All the signings they make in the summer will now come in January. So that's going to be a big hit on them. And this could very well be Antoine Griezmann's last year, as well as Diego Simeone's. There's a lot of uncertainty around Atletico Madrid. I think they're still a mainstay in La Liga and in the Champions League, so I think they're going to have deep runs in both. In La Liga, I don't see them getting better than 3rd place, but with a weak Barcelona, I think they could get 2nd, but because of the fact they haven't brought in any new players, they will struggle to challenge for the title. Moving on to 2nd place, it's Barcelona. So far, we have the same exact top 4 as last year in La Liga. But the reason I have Barcelona at 2nd again, they lost one of their best players in Neymar. And as of right now, they haven't really replaced him. They're looking at Ousmane Dembélé. They're looking at Felipe Coutinho. I think those could be decent replacements. But at the same time, they didn't really fix their midfield issue. Iniesta is aging. Rakitic didn't have a great season last year. Everyone was looking at Nice's midfielder Sarri to come in. He had a fantastic season last year. But instead, they brought in Paulinho from China. I think Paulinho's been fantastic with the Brazil squad, but bringing him just based on that, I think is some really poor decision making. He could prove us all wrong and be a fantastic signing, but as we all know, players can play very differently for their national team compared to their club. Bringing in Paulinho for me was not the answer. And just seeing them in the Super Cup, they were really not up to the standard compared to Real Madrid, which leads me to La Liga champions, Real Madrid. They won 2 Champions Leagues in a row, and I think this is going to be their 2nd La Liga in a row as well. In terms of strengthening, they did bring in some good depth options, such as Dani Ceballos, who I think is going to be a great option in midfield. They brought in Theo Hernandez, which will be the cover for Marcelo at left back. And they did lose some big players, such as Alvaro Morata, who had a fantastic season off the bench last year, as well as Danilo, who isn't the best player but is a good depth option. And of course, Pepe has moved on to Besiktas. But at the same time, I think they're going to use a lot of young players in that center back position to cover Varane and Ramos. I think this is the best course of action for Real Madrid, not really bringing in any Galactico signings. And last year they did the same thing and they end up winning the Champions League. Zidane has built a fantastic team, and that midfield for me is just fantastic, especially if they use that diamond with Isco at the tip of it, Casemiro in defensive midfield, Modric and Kroos on either side. It's just really hard to compete with that. So those are my top 4 predictions for the Bundesliga, Serie A, and La Liga. Give me your predictions in the comment section below. Please like, share, and subscribe for more football content. And thank you for watching Rosie TV.